go ahead and get the webinar here started. So thank you everybody for attending today. We have with us as a presenter Greg Roeder.
Hello.
From Waypoint Real Estate. So he will be going through a couple different things on kind of guidance on the most important pieces of your business, which as most of us know is real estate. So we'll let Greg get started here. If there are any questions, his contact info will be at the very end of the presentation, so you're more than welcome to write that down and contact Greg directly. You can also contact us here at Journey, and we're happy to get you connected to Greg. So we'll let Greg go ahead and get started.
Hi, everybody. Yep, my name is Greg Roeder. I'm partner and co-founder at Waypoint Real Estate. You can see my email address here on this slide. You can also reach me on my cell phone at 970-213-2095. And yeah, what we're going to do today is just talk about some of the mistakes people make when they are leasing real estate. So jumping right into it, 5 common mistakes when leasing. First one, not enough control over the lease term. So, generally people will do 3-year, 5-year leases, sometimes 7-year. Max, I would say in our market is 10-year. The biggest thing that I see, particularly with office leases, is people not exercising enough control, meaning that it is relatively common for a tenant to request right to terminate. The right to terminate meaning if you have a 5-year lease or a 7-year lease and something changes with your business in year 2 or 3, giving notice, some kind of reasonable amount of notice to the landlord and having the right to terminate your lease. Now, are there some things that come along with that? Yes, absolutely. Generally, there will be some kind of fee involved, repaying prorated brokerage fees, things of that nature, but that can all be negotiated. I guess the point to make here that it is an option, it is a tool you'll have at your disposal, and it's something that we use a lot when we're negotiating lease deals for office tenants in northern Colorado. Another mistake, expansion rights. Your business may be growing, or at the very least, you may think that there is a high probability that your business will grow at some point during your lease term, whether that's 3, 5, 7 years. So expansion rights, it gives you the right to lease additional space in your building. There are all sorts of different ways to word those rights. Generally, what we have success with is first right of refusal if there is space on your floor in your building, or maybe a larger space on a different floor. You have the first right of refusal. And how that works is somebody else comes in and wants to lease that space. The landlord has to go to you first and say, do you want to lease this space? You'll have some real limited amount of time to say yes or no and get to a lease. But you'll at least have that right. So working that into a deal is important, and generally landlords will not frown upon that because if they do negotiate an expansion deal with you, then that may negate their need to pay brokerage fees to an outside tenant. Plus, you're already a known quantity to them. So we have had success negotiating those rights of first refusal. Lack of clarity with build-out expenses. That's the third one on this list. That's a real big one right now. I think what you see in our world is a tenant gets a space tied up with a non-binding letter of intent. They're working towards a lease, and they might get some real high-level ideas of what their build-out expense is going to be. And that might even be from their real estate broker, someone that might not necessarily be real in tune with current construction prices. And they might not think it's a real big deal. They might think, well, it's 2, 3, 4 offices. How expensive could it be? Or at the very least, they might not be familiar with everything involved. Permitting, having to reconfigure HVAC, doors, hardware, transom windows to let some light into your office, electric. Generally, what we're seeing is even for minor build-outs, the costs are coming back exponentially higher than tenants expect in a market where really construction prices have gone up 100+% over the past 5 years. So that is something to really watch out for. How do you avoid that? Well, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But really, just lack of clarity with build-out expenses is a big mistake. Number 4 on this list: no caps on rising triple net expenses. So your triple net expenses when you're in an office lease, that's going to be your taxes, your insurance, your common area maintenance. They might include some other things as well, security, janitorial. What people will find is that, triple net expenses, because a large part of that are taxes and insurance, they don't have a lot of control over a portion of those triple nets. Now, a lot of those expenses, though, the landlord does have some control over. Janitorial, common area maintenance. Maybe they decide to refinish the driveway. Per a standard lease that can be very landlord friendly, the landlord can spend all sorts of money on things. I mentioned, repaving the parking lot. They can do new light fixtures in the building. They can do things to their building that they can pass along to the tenants. But what you want to have in your lease is some kind of a clause. And again, we'll go into how to avoid these mistakes. And I am not an attorney and will not pretend to be one. So getting the wording here with the help of legal counsel is important. But you want to have some kind of cap on controllable expenses. I'll say that one more time. A cap on a controllable portion of the triple net expenses is absolutely key. We always try to get a cap on those expenses somewhere in the 3 to 5% range annually. But a cap on those expenses is very, very important. It can save you a lot of money every year with your lease. Next common mistake is just really not having control over the common areas. And what I'm getting at there is there has to be something in the lease that states how the common areas will be maintained, who will maintain them, how often, etc. The last thing you want when you're leasing an expensive office space in a nice building is for your clients to walk into a common area that just doesn't look great. Maybe the windows aren't clean, or worse, use a restroom and the restrooms aren't clean. It really affects your business, and it's a reflection of you and your company. So having clarity on that in the lease is absolutely crucial. So 5 common mistakes. Let's talk about how to avoid these. Real high level here. A detailed letter of intent is the number one thing. A lot of times, letter of intent documents will be 1 page, 1.5 page documents, and it's just easier to negotiate a lease if all of the important deals are addressed early in the process. Meaning that while it's simple and it's non-binding, all of that's great, but consider making that non-binding letter of intent document a little bit longer, with guidance from your real estate broker, potentially even a little bit of guidance from your attorney, even on this non-binding letter of intent document. You really want to make sure that all of these important details are addressed in the letter of intent. We're avoiding these 5 mistakes that I mentioned previously, and just really making it a streamlined process. When you do get to the longer document, the lease document, the binding document, if you can hammer out those details up front, make sure that you and your landlord are on the same page, not only on the lease rate, the term, all these things that are generally reflected in the letter of intent, but also on additional details that will affect you, so that you don't have to go through a long, arduous negotiation on these things back and forth on the lease document and pay your attorney for a lot more hours of their time. Just a more detailed, thorough letter of intent is very, very important. Thorough legal review is the next thing. And I say here, attorney and broker synergy is important. Now, what that means is I think you want an attorney and a broker that are both A, experienced, and B, talking with each other. If they have worked together previously, that is a real plus. The attorney is just absolutely crucial for reviewing all the documentation, particularly the binding lease document, making sure the clauses are worded correctly. Now, the broker is really integral too, because the broker is going to say, well, here's what I'm seeing in the market. They're an experienced broker. Here's what I'm seeing in the market, and that will generally help the attorney, kind of phrase different things. So, as we look at this kind of just holistically, a lot of those problems, a lot of those mistakes that people make in the LOI process and the lease process, those can just be avoided through legal review and having your experienced team.
So, Greg, a question that did come in from a viewer here: if somebody contacts you and they're looking for a broker and they want you to start kind of working on some things, do you have attorneys that you are able to give them as a reference? Is that something you guys can do? Just to kind of get that good synergy right off the bat?
Great question, and we do. We really have a list, depending on if it's an office, a retail deal, industrial, land. We have different attorneys that we recommend, really depending on the area too. Loveland, Fort Collins, even different parts of Fort Collins. Our attorney recommendation could be a little bit different, but we do have a list of attorneys that we've worked with multiple times, and would love to share that with people if there's a need.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. And I think that wraps up this portion of the webinar. So we will have Greg's contact info here, but also, again, this will be sent out to everybody, so don't worry if you can't scramble and get this written down right away. We'll definitely get this out to everybody. And make sure to tune in. We have the second part of our webinar here is going to be on the buying side, correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go over the 5 common mistakes people make when buying real estate and how they can avoid those.
Wonderful. So these will be on our website and sent out together. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending. We will chat with everybody shortly.